count. The points are added up of their placings and the lowest total wins. I must say, having had a trip around the course yesterday with Brendan, one of the great concerns about class athletes was the heavy overnight frost, Brendan, because it was pretty rutted yesterday, and it's been, well, it's even worse this morning, and injuries.
Well, that's right, because most of these athletes have got their eyes on the Olympic Games, and these conditions were a surprise. And you can see Lynn Jennings there in second place, having a little bit of difficulty there, finding a decent track. Katrina McKiernan in third place, and Diaz seems to be coping with the conditions well. But we're 18 minutes into this race, and we're only about half a mile from the finish.
Huber in fourth place, just hanging in. And there's Jill Hunter going through. She's still about seventh. So the battle really on in front now. You've got to take a chance going downhill and hope the spikes hold you. Because underneath it's like a skating rink in patches. McKinnon holding well on to third place and looks to be safe there at the moment because there's a big gap to fourth and Vicky Huber.
Lynn Jennings there just demonstrated to me that she really knows her way around the country. She dived up the hill and she slid round the bend and then just let it all go, coming down the hill, moves alongside Diaz of Portugal and finds herself in the position that she's probably been dreaming about, trying to win this race on her home patch. She'd settle for being in a group of three of this nature with about 800, just under 800 meters to go, I would think. We're just looking over the back and we're trying to see exactly where the athletes are, and they're coming through the crowds on the far side, and then they'll make a sweep around the outside of the stadium and then they'll come into the stadium. Lynn Jennings there in third place, just having a little bit of difficulty there, but I think this is McKiernan's attack. McKiernan knows that if they come into the stadium together, she'd struggle, so she's sensibly striding out. She moved her way through the field quite successfully, and now she finds herself in the lead. Lynn Jennings is cautious. She's looking over her shoulder. She's confident about her sprint finish. She's confident about the support she's going to get, and now the opportunity of winning a third title. It's up to her now.
Well, McKernan and Diaz obviously are going to have something to say about that. Turning back towards the stadium. About, 600 metres left, and McKernan has another go. We've got quite a race here for gold, silver and bronze. And, of course, the world title. But Jennings, I remember last year in Antwerp, came from a bunch of about 6 or 7 runners with a sprint finish, wound it up over the last 400 metres and got away. But not easy to get traction on this surface. What a bold bid by McKiernan. She's trying to break the world champion. Jennings sticking in there, and here she goes with what she hopes will be the winning burst. And I hit a little bit of firmer ground coming into the stadium. There it is. Where the ice was so bad it's been covered over. And Jennings has made the bid for history. Trying to win the World Championship for the third time, but the other two unbeaten. McKiernan responds. And the Boston Irish in full throat. She's got a lot of support here now. And Jennings attacks again. Kiernan digs in behind. Diaz finding it very hard indeed. Looks back for danger, which is an ominous sign. And so Jennings comes home in front to take the World Championship for the third time in succession. McKiernan takes the silver for Ireland, a magnificent run, and Diaz of Portugal takes the bronze. In fourth place is Vicky Huber of America. And at the moment, coming up the funnel in about 8th place, the first Briton is Jill Hunter of Bladen Harriers, based now in the United States. Followed by, looks like Surma of the Kenyans. Kenyans coming in numbers, and we're just counting back to see who the next Briton is. It should be Lisa York, who on the last count was about 20th. Well, you've got to say, actually, just our count back, we just spotted Lisa York. She's losing ground rapidly all the way up the finishing column, and she's in the 30s. And Liz McColgan has dropped back and is just about to finish. She's about 40-41. Well, one's got to say, Brendan, that Lynn Jennings came here as the world champion for the past 2 years, and she's truly performed like a world champion. But a word too about the Irish girl.
Well, I thought Katrina McKiernan, who's run very well all winter and found herself in the lead with about 100 metres to go, she'll be absolutely delighted with that. She didn't come to win this race, she came to finish as high as she could. But Lynn Jennings, to bring the World Cross Country title onto a home patch and then to win it so convincingly, so strong all the way round, overcame the conditions and overcame the field very successfully.
So cross-country history from Lynn Jennings of the United States, and still to come is the men's race, and you can see that in our programme starting on BBC2 at 5 o'clock, and in that race Khalid Skar of Morocco is looking for a third consecutive title. Now update you on the rugby from earlier, the last round of international matches in the Five Nations Championship, and a 15-12 victory for Wales over Scotland and a record-breaking victory for France over Ireland. 44 points to 12, France's biggest ever win over Ireland and their biggest ever total in the championship. All that in Rugby Special BBC2 tomorrow, but the Five Nations table sees France finishing second behind the Grand Slam winners England, Scotland in third, and Wales in fourth, which they'll be pretty satisfied with, especially after their second win today, 15-12 over Scotland. And here's the reaction of the Welsh captain, Ian Evans.
Yeah, Ian, many happy returns of the day. It's turned out to be a good one.
Yeah, nice birthday present. The boys played exceptionally well in the first half in particular. You know, came out with a great deal of credit in the first half against a very strong breeze. We came away 3 points. We relaxed a little bit in the second half, led them back into the game. And when you do let people back in the game, it's very difficult to step up another gear to prevent them from taking over. But all credit to the team. They knuckled down well the last 10 minutes, tackled everything that moved. Only praise for the boys, especially the back row. I thought were immense today.
Looking back towards the start of the season, we forecasted that possibly Wales would win 2. This is what's happened. Where do you go from here?
Well, going back to the World Cup, I don't think many people give us a chance of winning the 2. We have won 2. We should have won the third against France. We've only got ourselves to blame for losing that game. It's given us a solid platform to work for next season. You know, of the teams we played, there's only one team that have totally outplayed us, and that was England, and that's the sort of standards we've got to aim for in the future. It took them an awful long while to get that standard, 4 or 5 years retaining the same core of players and personnel. We've got to aim for the same sort of area, same sort of standards by retaining our core.
Talking of retaining personnel, retaining the management team as well, hopefully.
I think so. An awful lot of what has happened this season has got to do with them. The amount of work they put in after the debacle of Australia and the World Cup. You know, we've come on in leaps and bounces then, but we still got an awful long way to go. There's no disputing that fact. You know, no one here is disputing it. But they put us on the right road by a lot of hard work and graft. And I think it's totally pointless to any sort of change in regime now. It would be unwise and also be very unfair.
Ian Evans with Wyn Griffiths. So Wales and France, the international winners today. Let's check the other results.
The ADT County Championship semi-finals, Cornwall 22 points, Yorkshire 3, Lancashire 29, Hampshire 9. The English Courage Clubs Championship, Division 1, Harlequins 21, Saracens 37, Leicester 51, Rosslyn Park 16, Rugby 0, Bath 32.
Right, let's concentrate on football as the scores start to come in from this afternoon's games, and well, score flashes still on the video printer. So let's take a check what's happening at Old Trafford. Goalless between Manchester United and Wimbledon, a match that United had to win to go back on top of the First Division. Tony Gubber is watching that.
Well, Manchester United's challenge for their first title in a quarter of a century increasingly lacks conviction. On their beach of a pitch today, too often United's artistry is foundering on a bad bounce or a misunderstanding. And Wimbledon's workhorses, beaten 5-1 by Leeds last week, have stuck manfully to their task. It's 0-0 at the moment, but only a Schmeichel save from Terry Phelan 5 minutes ago prevented Wimbledon from winning this. If those two results, 5-1 last week for Leeds and 0-0 here at Old Trafford at the yardstick, then you have to say that Leeds are beginning to look the better bet for the title. At times, United's attacks have really enveloped the visitors, but Kanchelskis, McClare, Hughes and Giggs have all failed to convert, and although Paul Ince adequately deputising this afternoon for the still injured Robson, there's still a very important missing ingredient. With about 15 minutes left, United have pulled off very unhappy looking Neil Webb and sent on Lee Sharp to make it 4 up front alongside Giggs, Kanchelskis and Hughes, but with the minutes ticking away they still can't get the goal that they require. Still 0-0.
Full-time scores just starting to go through on the video printer, as you can see, and the first score draw through from the Scottish Second Division, Clyde 1, Stranraer 1. At Anfield today, it's Liverpool and Spurs, the two sides knocked out of Europe in midweek. It sounds like more misery for Spurs, as we hear from Gerald Sinstadt.
2 goals by Dean Saunders, bracketing one by Paul Stewart, have made Tottenham's plight more parlous, but they didn't play well enough to deserve a margin as narrow as this. Liverpool are hardly sublime these days, over-elaborate around the penalty area, profligate with early chances, and left somewhat vulnerable by one of Grobbelaar's more variable displays. But Spurs, without Lineker and bolstered only by Torsvedt, Mabbutt and Stewart, have looked short of morale and low on ideas. They may yet avoid relegation, but only because there are worse teams below them. Frankly, they don't look capable of saving themselves.
And from the Scottish Premier, the full-time going through from the Edinburgh Derby. Hibernian 1, Hearts 2. That was Gordon Hunter. An own goal for Hearts, and Ian Ferguson, Mickey Weir after 51 minutes for Hibs. And quite a match going on, we hear in the First Division. Norwich City 4, Everton 3 there at Carrow Road. Full-time scoreline confirmed from Old Trafford. Manchester United 0, Wimbledon 0. So United missed the chance to go top of the First Division. Leeds play at Arsenal tomorrow. Division 1, Nottingham Forest 2, Manchester City 0. That was Gary Crosby after 64 minutes and Roy Keane after 87. Headlines from elsewhere at the top of the Second Division. Interesting match at Ewood Park, where the leaders Blackburn are trailing 2-0 to Charlton. Charlton in 8th place, Robert Lee and Carl Leeburn their scorers. Confirmation of the scoreline from Old Trafford. United 0, Wimbledon 0, and Leeds could stretch their lead at the top of the table tomorrow at Arsenal. The latest scores from the First Division: Chelsea 1, Sheffield United 2. In the all-important relegation games, it's Southampton 1, Luton 1, West Ham 2, Queen's Park Rangers 2. Here's an important match from the Second Division: Cambridge United and Ipswich. United in second, Ipswich in third, and it's finished all square. Simon Milton after 53 minutes for Ipswich, Mick Heathcote after 54 minutes for Cambridge United. But valuable points for both, with the prospect of the leaders Blackburn slipping up at home today. Scottish Premier, Airdrie 2, Falkirk 2. McGiven and Cadet for Falkirk, and 2 goals from Owen Coyle for Airdrie. Scottish Second, Dumbarton 1, Alloa 1. Scottish First, Ayr 0, Kilmarnock 2. Let's get a report from Scotland now, as the 4th Division scoreline goes through. Wrexham 1, Crewe 0, and a report on that Edinburgh Derby, Hibernian and Hearts, from Jock Brown.
Hearts kept alive their slim championship hopes with a hard-fought victory over Hibs in the final derby of the season at Edinburgh. But it was all about Mickey Weir in the second half. Hearts went in half-time, leading by 1-0, an own goal by Gordon Hunter in 41 minutes. But then Mickey Weir scored a brilliant equaliser for Hibs in 54 minutes. Hibs were on the ascendancy, and then Weir was ordered off in 61 minutes for his second bookable offence. That gave Hearts the initiative to come forward. They won the game in 76 minutes when Ian Ferguson scored after Reid parried a Bannon header. It's Hibs 1, Hearts 2.
Premier Division score going through there. St Johnstone 1, Dunfermline 0. That was Tommy Turner after 72 minutes. Second Division, Middlesbrough 4, Brighton 0. Middlesbrough back on their best form. Scottish Premier also, Aberdeen 0, Dundee United 2. And you'll see that that result from Ewood Park is confirmed. Blackburn 0, Charlton 2. And Charlton 3 wins in succession. They're right in the playoff frame once again. And that Second Division promotion race looking very, very interesting indeed. Scottish First, Partick 0, Hamilton 0. And the confirmed scoreline from Anfield: Liverpool 2, Spurs 1. Spurs remain without a league win since December, and relegation beckons as a very serious prospect for them. Scottish First, Clydebank 2, Morton 3. 5-score draws so far. Division 1, Chelsea 1, Sheffield United 2. What a disappointing week this has been for Chelsea. Dave Whitehouse, a couple of goals for Sheffield United, giving them the points at Stamford Bridge. Scottish 2nd, Stenhousemuir 1, Arbroath 0. And the 2nd Division, Swindon Town 3, Southend United 1. Southend's disappointing recent form continues. Duncan Shearer, Paul Bodin and Dave Mitchell for Swindon. And Southend just 1 point from the last 5 games after looking so good for a First Division place just a few weeks ago. Division 4, York City 1, Doncaster 1. Tense stuff at Upton Park. We hear West Ham United 2, Queen's Park Rangers 2 confirmed there, and Southampton 1, Luton Town 1, the all-important First Division relegation games. Here's an important one from Division 3, and Peterborough, who've been going so well, recently beaten. Bradford 2, Peterborough 1, and Peterborough's first defeat in 10 games. 9 successive wins, and now that defeat at Bradford. Stoke City 5, Exeter 2, the leaders in Division 3 winning well. Birmingham City 2, Huddersfield 0 in Division 3, and West Bromwich Albion 2, Reading 0, the 2 Midlands promotions challengers in Division 3 winning well. Division 1, Norwich City 4, Everton 3. And that was quite a match. Johnston, a couple of goals for Everton and Peter Beardsley. Darren Beckford got a hat-trick for Norwich City. Lincoln City 1, Northampton Town 2. Northampton can win, but they can't make any money. Division 3, Darlington 0, Preston 2. And Division 2, Plymouth 1, Tranmere 0. That was Steve Morgan after 79 minutes. Valuable points for Plymouth, 22nd coming into today's games. Division 3, Leyton Orient 2, Torquay 0. And Derby County 1, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2. That's a slip-up at home for promotion challengers Derby, Paul Birch and Steve Bull for Wolves. Division 4, Rotherham 5, Scunthorpe United 0. And in the First Division, Crystal Palace 0, Aston Villa 0. Aston Villa can't score or win. Seven-score draws the total. Second Division, Millwall 1, Port Vale 0. They parted company with their manager Bruce Rioch in midweek, but they got the points through a goal from Malcolm Allen after 52 minutes. Port Vale's problems increase. They're bottom, 17 games without a win now. Conference scorelines going through with the competition hotting up there. And here's a surprise from Ibrox Park, the Old Firm match. Rangers 0, Celtic 2, and goals there from Charlie Nicholas and Jerry Craney. And really, Celtic 11 wins in a row now, and if they produce that kind of form earlier in the season, well, that championship battle in Scotland could be very different indeed. Second Division, Oxford United 2, Portsmouth 1. Beecham after 71 minutes and Trevor Aylott after 80 minutes. Darren Anderton for Portsmouth. Portsmouth were 4th, and they'll regret the points that they lost there. Second Division, Sunderland 1, Bristol City 3. Sunderland coming down to earth somewhat after their quarter-final FA Cup win over Chelsea in midweek. Andrew Cole and a couple of goals from Wayne Allison for Bristol City. And Sunderland must be careful because they're not out of the relegation battle at all. Division 4, Maidstone 1, Gillingham 1 in the Kent Derby. And Division 3, Bolton 2, Bury 1 in the Lancashire Derby. Division 1, Sheffield Wednesday 1, Notts County 0. And that was David Hurst after 74 minutes for Sheffield Wednesday. Third place. Wednesday, County bottom but 1. Division 4, Rochdale 3, Hereford 1, and the First Division, Coventry 1, Oldham 1. That was Andy Pearce after 11 minutes for Coventry and Nick Henry after 29 for Oldham. And Coventry's last home win, that was what, way back on November the 30th. Details on that St Mirren scoreline in the Scottish Premier. St Mirren 1, Motherwell 2. Alex Jones after 8 minutes equalising for Motherwell after John Hewitt had put St Mirren ahead. Phil O'Donnell getting the winner. Division 4, Mansfield 0, Burnley 1. And that was Mike Conroy after 41 minutes. The big match in the 4th Division. Mansfield 2nd, Burnley 3rd. And they were just a point behind with 2 games in hand. Important win that for Burnley. And important points being fought for all over the country, and we've got together all the classified results.
Barclays League Division 1. Chelsea 1, Sheffield United 2, Coventry City 1, Oldham Athletic 1, Crystal Palace 0, Aston Villa 0, Liverpool 2, Tottenham Hotspur 1, Manchester United 0, Wimbledon 0. Norwich City 4, Everton 3. Nottingham Forest 2, Manchester City 0. Sheffield Wednesday 1, Notts County 0. Southampton 2, Luton Town 1. West Ham United 2, Crystal Palace, Queen's Park Rangers 2. League Division 2, Blackburn Rovers 0, Charlton Athletic 2. Bristol Rovers against Barnsley, a late result. Cambridge United 1, Ipswich Town 1. And Derby County 1, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2. Grimsby Town against Newcastle United, late result. Leicester City 1, Watford 2. Middlesbrough 4, Brighton and Hove Albion 0. Millwall 1, Port Vale 0. Oxford United 2, Portsmouth 1. Plymouth Argyle 1, Tranmere Rovers 0. Sunderland 1, Bristol City 3. Swindon Town 3, Southend United 1. And the Bristol Rovers Barnsley result, Bristol Rovers 0, Barnsley 0. League Division 3, Birmingham City 2, Huddersfield Town 0. Bolton Wanderers 2, Bury 1. Bradford City 2, Peterborough United 1. Chester City versus Hull City, late result. Darlington 0, Preston North End 2. Leyton Orient 2, Torquay United 0. Stoke City 5, Exeter City 2. West Bromwich Albion 2, Reading 0. League Division 4, Blackpool 3, Chesterfield 1. Carlisle United 2, Scarborough 2. Halifax Town 3, Barnet 1. Lincoln City 1, Northampton Town 2. Maidstone United 1, Gillingham 1. Mansfield Town 0, Burnley 1. Rochdale 3, Hereford United 1. Rotherham United 5, Scunthorpe United 0. Wrexham 1, Crewe Alexandra 0. York City 1, Doncaster Rovers 1. The Vauxhall Conference, Altrincham 0, Redbridge Forest 3. Boston United 4, Barrow 1. Colchester United 1, Northwich Victoria 0. Farnborough Town 1, Cheltenham Town 1. Gateshead 0, Kettering Town 0. Kidderminster Harriers 2, Merthyr Tydfil 2. Telford United 2, Slough Town 2. Welling United 0, Bath City 5. Wycombe Wanderers 3, Stafford Rangers 0. Yeovil Town 1, Runcorn 4. The B&Q Scottish League Premier Division, Aberdeen 0, Dundee United 2. Edrionians 2, Falkirk 2. Hibernian 1, Heart of Midlothian 2. Rangers 0, Celtic 2. St Johnstone 1, Dunfermline Athletic 0. St Mirren 1, Motherwell 2. Scottish League Division 1, Ayr United 0, Kilmarnock 2. Clydebank 2, Morton 3. Dundee 3, Wraith Rovers 2. Forth Athletic 2, Montrose 0. Meadowbank Thistle 0, Stirling Albion 0. Partick Thistle 0, Hamilton Academicals 0. Scottish League Division 2, Albion Rovers 3, Queen's Park 4. Brecon City 0, East Fife 1. Clyde 1, Stranraer 1. Cowdenbeath 4, Berwick Rangers 1. Dumbarton 1, Alloa Athletic 1. Queen of the South 2, East Stirlingshire 3. Stenhousemuir 1, Arbroath 0. And today's other pools matches, late result between Chelmsford City and Dorchester Town. Crawley Town 1, Burton Albion 2. Gloucester City 1, VS Rugby 2. Gravesend and Northfleet 0. Bromsgrove Rovers 1.
This is the position in the late results. One of them is in, that one in League Division 3. Chester City 1, Hull City 1. Latest score from Division 2, Grimsby Town 1, Newcastle 1. That kick-off was delayed because of a crowd spillage onto the pitch before the start. All is well, we understand, but Grimsby Town 1, Newcastle 1, a latest score. And also on the pools, latest score from Chelmsford. Chelmsford City 0, Dorchester Town 1. And that is now a result. Well, it's moved on just a little bit from our latest position. Chelmsford City 0, Dorchester Town 3, a result. So we wait one result, that one from Grimsby. But a check on the pool situation. 10 score draws and 4 no-score draws. That one Grimsby result to come. No decision on the telephone claims. The 10 score draws, check for you. Numbers 2, 8, 11, 24, 30, 33, 38, 44, 55 and 57. And the 4 no-score draws, 3, 10, 51 and 52. Well, Manchester United missed the chance to go top, drawing 0-0 with Wimbledon today. Leeds play Arsenal tomorrow at Highbury, while Sheffield Wednesday stay third. That's the situation at the top of the First Division. Meanwhile, at the bottom, the important game at the foot of the table was at the Dell, where Southampton beat Luton. The winner coming from Ian Dowie against his old club. West Ham remain at the foot of the table. In the second division, leaders Blackburn, they lost at home to Charlton Athletic, so Cambridge and Ipswich, who drew in their top of the table match today, are now just 2 points behind. Charlton move up to 5th. And at the bottom, Port Vale still adrift in bottom place, but good wins for fellow strugglers Bristol City, Plymouth and Oxford United, and that all means that Brighton drop deeper into trouble. And confirmed from Grimsby, final score in that match. Grimsby Town 1, Newcastle United 1. Another score draw, making a total of 11 in all. Division 3, Stoke's home win over Exeter means they're now 6 points clear of Stockport and Brentford, who both played last night, and West Bromwich Albion, who won today. Peterborough lost their first league game in 10 at Bradford. And at the bottom, 2 of this morning's bottom 3 met this afternoon, with Preston winning at home, winning at the bottom club Darlington. Torquay also lost. Division 4, Blackpool beat Chesterfield. They stay top, while Burnley won the big game in that promotion battle, 1-0 at Mansfield. And it's as you were at the bottom. Aldershot just about keeping going in the league, but they lost at Cardiff last night. Doncaster drew with York today. In the Vauxhall Conference, Colchester and Wycombe both had home wins today, so no change in the chase for promotion to the league. And the Scottish Premier, well, Celtic made it 11 victories in a row with their 2-0 win over leaders Rangers. They consolidate their position in 3rd place, but Rangers 5 points clear of Hearts. At the bottom, Dunfermline, they're relegated. Their defeat by St Johnstone and Airdrie's point against Falkirk, consigning Dunfermline to First Division football next season. And in the First Division, Dundee increased their lead at the top to 2 points after their 3-2 win against Wraith. Partick Thistle and Hamilton drew with each other this afternoon. They stay 2nd and 3rd respectively. And at the foot of the table, Forfar beat Montrose today to move to within 1 point of them. These two remain deep in the relegation zone. And in the Second Division, leaders Cowdenbeath scored a comfortable win against Berwick today to increase their advantage at the top to 3 points. And at the bottom, Stenhousemuir scored a rare win against Arbroath, but despite that, stay next to bottom. Let's look ahead to sport coming up this week. And on Wednesday evening in Sports Night, well, it's international soccer with England's friendly in Czechoslovakia and Scotland against Finland at Hampden Park. Top-class boxing as well, all starting BBC1 at 10:30. And it's the Mexican Grand Prix tomorrow afternoon. Nigel Mansell on provisional pole position after the first qualifying session. You can see highlights of the race, BBC2 at 8:55. But the talking point from qualifying was the accident that befell Ayrton Senna in the McLaren. A very bumpy track, and that's what seemed to throw Senna offline. And the impact was a nasty one, through the sand trip and into the wall. Well, initially he seemed okay, but then his distress became a little bit more clear as he tried to get out of the car. There was injury to his leg, which was eventually diagnosed as only bruising, but he was concussed and shocked and is very doubtful for tomorrow's race. Well, Nigel Mansell, having won in Brazil, by contrast for him, he was in superb form, fastest in this opening session, more than a second ahead of the young German Michael Schumacher in the Benetton. And here's Nigel's reaction to it all.
The last lap I pushed more than 10 tenths. Schumacher, Michael is going exceedingly well in the Benetton. It's very quick. And I had to pull out all the stops to do the quickest time here today. And I'm very happy with that last lap, very happy.
Nigel, quick comment on the bumps, because we saw you twitching through the S's in that same place where Senna went off.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this car is more or less the same as a passive on this circuit. The bumps are terrible, and you're fighting for control all the time. And I mean, it's not a nice feeling, because it's an accident waiting to happen all the time.
Let's hope he has a safe race tomorrow. Good luck, Nigel Mansell, in the Mexican Grand Prix. The Five Nations Rugby Championship is over. Here are today's two results. France 44, Ireland 12. Record-breaking win for France, and Wales getting their second win of the championship, 15 points to 12 over Scotland. Now, just a few minutes ago in Boston, we saw Lynn Jennings setting a bit of cross-country history with her third consecutive victory in the World Championship there. McKiernan of Ireland putting up a fine battle in second place. But disappointment for Liz McColgan, who finished well back down the field, and it really wasn't her kind of conditions. Cold and freezing, and Liz never really got going. Now, this is the scene live there, all poised for the start of the men's race, in which Eamon Martin is the top British challenger there. And you can see coverage of that starting in a moment on BBC 2, our special programme there. So that's it, cross-country now on BBC 2, and don't miss the Mexican Grand Prix on BBC 2 also tomorrow evening. Nigel Mansell trying to make it 2 out of 2. Bye.